Rob Savage shocked us all when we tuned in to see Host, the video chat horror that hit right when everyone was first getting into them during the pandemic. He followed that up with the truly terrible Dashcam, which followed the most annoying person on the planet through the worst night of her life. Now Savage is back. He's put down the shaky cam and is making his first big boy, dramatically filmed, big-budget horror movie, a Stephen King adaptation, even though it seems only barely to follow the short story. Let's see what kind of boogie this boogeyman has in store for us, shall we? Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. The Boogeyman, aka Night Terror, is still in theaters from 20th Century Studios. Catch it before it's wedged out of theaters by all these big budget movies coming out. It's directed by Rob Savage and written by Scott Beck, Brian Woods, Mark Heyman, and based on a short story by Stephen King. After his wife dies in a car accident, therapist Will Harper, played by Chris Messina, attempts to keep his family, daughters Sadie, played by Sophie Thatcher, and Sawyer, played by Vivian Lyra Brown, together through this massive loss. Just when things are starting to get back to normal, Will's home office is visited by a desperate man named Lester, played by David Dastmalchian, who speaks of a dark entity that has been plaguing his family, killing his 3 daughters one by one. Freaked out by this unexpected visitor, Will calls the police to take care of him, but little does he know that by allowing Lester into his home, he's also allowed this dark entity to move on from Lester's family and take its sights on Sadie and Sawyer. The creature, referred to as the Boogeyman only once in the film, resides in the dark and attacks when you're alone and sleeping. Like much of James Wan's films, Insidious, Conjuring, even Malignant, the Boogeyman deals with that primal childhood fear of the dark emanating from spaces under the bed and in the closet. It plays with those fears like a cat does a mouse and makes the threat that your parents told you was all in your head very real. Wan has made a fortune on this type of stuff, but as with any popular idea, other studios are going to nab it and try to copy it and do it their own way. Basically, the Boogeyman uses the concept of a monster being some kind of virus one catches from one person and then passes on to the next. It's like the Smiler in Smile, which was just like the Follower in It Follows. It's something that is infectious, especially to those who are weak and vulnerable. Sure, there's an obvious metaphor of COVID that makes this type of film still somewhat relevant. The concept loses its mojo upon repetition. That's the real problem with the Boogeyman. We've seen this type of film before. Now, that doesn't mean it's a terrible movie. The acting is quite sharp. Sophie Thatcher, who starred in the Exorcist series, as well as Yellow Jackets, is a strong lead here, even though Messina is the lead name on the poster. Messina is okay in the lead role, but his character is conveniently absent pretty much most of the movie. Sure, he pops in when you need a jump scare or some kind of awkward conflict with his teen daughter, but when the real shit happens, he's nowhere to be found. This leaves Thatcher to carry the film, and she does so pretty well. Looking like a younger sister to Anya Taylor-Joy, Thatcher plays the depressed and heartbroken teen looking for some kind of hope that her mother still exists. She's likable, sympathetic, and tough when she needs to be. While it's not really an original character, Thatcher does well with what she's got. Little Vivian Lyra Blair is also strong as Sawyer, the younger sibling, who feels more like a pawn here to show off these multiple scenes focusing on childhood fears. She isn't the lead, but she sure as hell takes a lot of physical and psychological beatings in this film. While kids usually annoy the hell out of me in these movies, Blair succeeds in being both adorable and plucky enough to be a standout. Finally, David Dastmalchian shows up to add another weird role to his stable of weird roles that he's played in the past. The character actor deserves more than this, and while I'd love to see Alan Tudyk take over as Freddy Krueger in the next Nightmare on Elm Street, I'd settle for Dastmalchian wearing the fedora and claw glove. I think he'd do it a lot of justice, being a horror fan and all. Back to the boogeyman. In the dark, with the glowing eyes, the boogeyman is quite effective. While we never get a real full-on clear shot of the monster until the end, the design is at times impressive and other times kind of confusing. It's got two hands coming out of its mouth, which stretches its jaw open to reveal another face, I guess. At the end, the monster gains the power to drain something through tendrils from its victims. Everything about the monster itself is extremely ill-defined. The monster's four smile and it follows kept things vague, but at least there was a set of rules to follow. Here it seems anything goes, with less ambiguity for the sake of being scary, and more ambiguity for the sake of being lazily written. Even the defeat of the monster is all over the place. I'm not asking for a scientific autopsy of the monster explaining every in and out of the boogeyman, but some kind of clue would have been nice. If you can call it a main theme, the boogeyman's point, I guess, is dealing with grief. It's not a new subject to tackle. It highlights the importance of communication between family members and shows how unfair life can be. It tries to go deep, but for the most part, the drama feels like something you'd get on every other episode of Party of Five. Director Rob Savage delivers a movie that is not as spectacular as Host, but not as annoying as Dashcam. It's somewhere in the middle. Savage remembers to put all of the shockaroos and jump scares he can fit in this one. Some of them work, others don't. The boogeyman feels like a big-budget style It Follows with all of the art house shaved away. It's not horrible, just terribly mediocre. And since there's so much good horror out there right now, just being mediocre isn't good enough.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're doomed. God live the life that you are meant to be. Live inside that reality.